Most people have been told to watch their sugar intake. And while that advice is not wrong, it is dramatically incomplete because the most dangerous carbohydrate in the modern diet is not sugar. It is not even classified as a sugar. And most people consuming it in enormous quantities every single day have absolutely no idea it is there. I'm Dr. Berg, turning keto and health science into simple habits that transform lives. Today I want to show you what this carbohydrate is, what it does to your body, why it is in almost every processed food you can name, and why it is more destructive than sugar by a significant margin. It is industrial starch, modified food starch, modified cornstarch, maltodextrin, and it comes in a powder so refined, so stripped of its natural structure that your body breaks it down into sugar faster than glucose itself, producing a blood sugar spike that dwarfs what table sugar produces. Yet it is marketed as containing 0 sugars. It passes right through nutritional labeling without being counted. And it costs approximately 20 cents per pound because it is heavily government subsidized, meaning taxpayers are effectively funding its production and keeping it artificially cheap. The average American consumes between 65 and 250 pounds of this substance every single year. 21 billion pounds of it are produced annually. It is in gluten-free foods, baby formulas, baked goods, sports nutrition products, hot dogs, cereals, crackers, chips, bread, pasta, and thousands of other packaged products. It adds bulk, it costs almost nothing, and it has 0 health benefits. To understand why it is so damaging, you need to understand what starch actually is. A natural starch, like a potato or a vegetable, is a chain of sugar molecules held together by chemical bonds. When you eat it, your digestive system has to work to break those bonds, and the sugar releases relatively gradually. That is how nature designed it, complete with fiber, water, vitamins, and minerals that slow and buffer the process. Industrial starch is something completely different. It starts as a natural starch and is then mechanically ground into microscopic particles, chemically treated with bleach and other industrial chemicals, and refined to the point where the bonds between sugar molecules become extraordinarily fragile. The moment you consume it, those bonds collapse almost instantly. The sugar floods your bloodstream faster than if you had simply eaten pure glucose. The blood sugar spike is more intense, the insulin response is more extreme, and the damage that follows is compounded accordingly. Let me run through some of the chemicals used in the modification process, because you need to know what you are actually consuming. Sodium triethyl phosphate has been linked to kidney stress, vascular calcification, bone demineralization, and accelerated arterial aging. Vinyl acetate is classified as a possible human carcinogen. Sodium hypochlorite, bleach, is regulated as a carcinogen in water supplies, but not in food starch. Overexposure is linked to kidney damage and destruction of mucosal tissue. And another chemical widely used in infant formulas and beverages has been associated with disruption of mitochondrial function when consumed in excess. All of these chemicals are self-regulated under a classification called GRAS, generally recognized as safe, which means they have not been subjected to rigorous long-term safety studies. They are simply assumed to be safe. And then we wonder why chronic disease rates keep climbing. Here's how this starch hides in plain sight on a nutrition label. Look at a typical packaged food. You see total carbohydrates, you see fiber, you see sugar, but starch is not required to be listed separately. So if a product has 16 grams of total carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, and 0 grams of sugar, there are 15 grams of starch sitting right there, completely invisible to anyone who does not know to read the ingredients list for modified food starch, modified cornstarch, or wheat starch. This is why starch is the stealth carbohydrate. Sugar gets the attention, starch gets ignored. But starch makes up the majority of calories in almost every ultra-processed food on the market. Chips are roughly 65% starch and 30% seed oil. Cheez-Its run about 70% starch and 25% seed oil. Breakfast cereals are around 80% starch. Bread is approximately 75% starch, with seed oils making up most of the rest. Pasta is similar. French fries are 80% starch, 15% seed oils. The numbers are consistent across the entire snack and processed food category. And here is where it gets significantly worse. Almost nobody consumes industrial starch by itself. They consume it combined with seed oils, corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, and heat. When you take industrial starch and seed oils and apply heat, as in frying, baking, or extrusion processing, you create a chemical reaction that generates compounds more toxic than either ingredient alone. One byproduct is a class of chemicals called aldehydes. Aldehydes are what is used in embalming fluid to preserve corpses. Another byproduct is the same toxic compound your liver produces when you drink alcohol, the chemical responsible for the hangover and much of alcohol's organ damage. These compounds are being generated and consumed at scale in the foods most people eat every day. The metabolic consequences of chronic industrial starch consumption are severe and wide-ranging. It drives blood sugar spikes that exceed those of table sugar. It creates insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes. It generates fatty liver. It produces visceral fat, the fat that accumulates around internal organs. It feeds pathogenic bacteria in the gut while disrupting beneficial microbes. It drives systemic inflammation in joints, in the gut, in blood vessels. It creates the small, dense LDL particles that penetrate arterial walls and initiate plaque formation. It contributes to the advanced glycation end products that drive Alzheimer's plaquing in the brain. And it promotes liver fibrosis and cirrhosis through the same glycation mechanism. The population level numbers make this concrete. 65% of the calories young children eat come from ultra-processed foods, and approximately 55 pounds of that annually is pure industrial starch. For teenagers, it is 70% of calories from ultra-processed foods. Over 106 pounds of industrial starch per year. For adults, the figure is 55% of calories from ultra-processed foods and 67 pounds of industrial starch annually. These numbers are considered conservative by researchers. The actual consumption is likely higher. One more thing worth noting, organic does not save you here. Organic ultra-processed food with modified cornstarch and seed oils is metabolically identical to its conventional counterpart. The starch and the oils do the same damage regardless of whether the corn was grown organically. People see an organic label and assume they're making a healthy choice. They are not. And industrial starch is not the potato your grandmother boiled and served at dinner. It is not the starch in vegetables. It is not even the same as cooking cornstarch at home. It is a chemically modified, industrially processed powder that does not meet the biological definition of food, that which sustains life and promotes the growth and repair of tissues. It does none of those things. It does the opposite. Read every label. Look for modified food starch, modified cornstarch, wheat starch, and maltodextrin in the ingredients. Those words mean industrial starch, and now you know exactly what they do. The next piece of this picture is seed oils, and what happens when they combine with starch is even more important to understand. I put that video right here. Watch it next.